Anyway, welcome to Star Trek. We are here talking about Ad Astra per Aspera, the court-martial episode of Strange New Worlds Season 2. And holy moly, what an episode. Where do we start with this, honestly? This is possibly one of the most excellent episodes of Star Trek for various reasons, if not more meaning than tangibility of the legal case, because the legal case was very much TV lawyerism, as opposed to sort of, you know, there were a lot of plot holes in that. But guys, please, initial thoughts.
Well, I mean, I am glad to see this was one of the last remaining big genres of Trek trope that Strange New Worlds hadn't touched on yet. So I'm glad to see they went there. I mean, it was pretty obvious that they were going to have to do something with the way season 1 ended that was going to end in a courtroom somehow. Yeah. So it was really good to see them pull that off as well as they did. So that's my initial thought.
Yeah, because we had.
This just follows in the tradition of Measure of a Man and court martial. Yep. Like Star Trek does courtroom drama really, really quite well. So
most of the time. Yeah, 9 out of 10 times you get a court martial or a Measure of a Man. Sometimes you get a Rules of Engagement, which I think is lame.
I like Rules of Engagement. I hate really Rules of Engagement. I was thinking more about you get Turnabout Intruder, and then you get the bad ones. I should introduce.
That's not really a court. I don't even define that as a courtroom episode.
Blow me, stars and garters.
That's not defined by the courtroom.
To my right, to my left, Jeopardy champion extraordinaire, Big McLarchies, and over the road, over there is Khan musical, Captain Kirk actor, off-Broadway extraordinaire, Shire Porn. Anyway, sorry, I forgot to introduce you at the start. We came all off kilter. We were just stunned by I'm trying to get this name right, Yetidi Badaki's excellent performance as Neera. Stars, go on, you were going to say.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, like, she fucking nails it. Like, we have, like, a strong tradition of good Star Trek lawyers, and it's like, you could probably make those memes that are always like, you can make a crew with $25, and then it's like, you get your $5 tier, your $4, and it's like, what can you make with all this? Who's your choices? And it's like, you have your Star Trek lawyers. Do you want, Ron Canada, the Klingon lawyer? Do you want Picard? Do you want Samuel T. Cogley? And I feel like at this point, but I feel like you've got to put Neera up on that $5 tier now. She's maybe even the $6 tier on her own, because she is a stonker. She's fucking. She's got charisma.
She had
got authority.
You can tell by the end of the episode she had worked it all out from the start. Soon she gets handed that book of the court of the old school thick book of volume 8.1 of the Code of Conduct, which must be like someone's Encyclopedia.
Yes, the Oxford English Starflictionary.
Yes. 12.9. 12.9. Yeah.
Volume 12.9 of the Uniform Code of Justice, implying there are 12.8 more volumes of that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's the thing. She knows the law. She just asked for it so she could find the exact book it was in, so she could then ask for a physical book, so she would have a prop in the courtroom to slam down on the table.
I mean, if you're going to be a lawyer, you're doing it for the drama. Let's be real here. You're all about justice. You're all about sticking it to the man. You got to have a prop. You got to have the book. Like... I mentioned Miles Edgeworth as a comparison because there's a wonderful series of games called Phoenix Wright, which is, if you want to talk about like fictionalized lawyerism, that's the most fictionalized you'll ever get. It's all, you can only have trials over 3 days. It has to be solved by that point or the person's automatically guilty. That kind of bullshit. So because it's a video game. Yeah, but at the end of one of the cases, it all comes down to a simple matter of like, you have like 40 pieces of evidence, and the game asks you, okay, here's your final question. Here's how you win the game. How do you answer it? And you go through all this forensic evidence. You go through witness statements, and then it just comes down to a book that someone handed you right at the beginning of the case, and it's just a book on evidence law. And I love it when a good courtroom drama or a piece like this just goes down to, no, I could pull some bullshit of a testimony we didn't mention or some kind of law I didn't talk about. But here it's like, no, this is a really... I think, Shai, you mentioned that this is in current law, right? This basic law.
Oh, she's basically, at the end of the episode, she's basically quoting current U.S. asylum law.
Yeah.
Like, for asylum seekers, seeking political asylum, fleeing political or racial persecution in other countries. It's a very unsubtle allegory for immigration and asylum law and refugee law, not just here in the U.S., but of course is very prevalent throughout Europe right now.
Yeah, it's not like she
Many
quoted
refugee
Space
crises.
Command Directive 1531, you know? It's like, no, this is based on obvious real-life asylum law. And it's like, okay, yeah, of course you go to just the law is the law. And if you're gonna... Especially, like, letting Pasolk and Patel set themselves up by, oh, this isn't about emotions, this is all about, you know, the strict adherence to the law. And she's like, cool, read that. It's like, that's what being a lawyer is all about. It's about the drama.
Yeah, it's about that, and
definitely.
of course the queer LGBTQ
Yes.
Yes.
civil rights
Well,
Very much so.
messaging.
Yes.
Calling it coming out was not a subtle way of referring to it. Yeah.
No, this was.
Well,
the,
I mean,
yeah,
and
sorry, go back.
that's how that's how Trek works. That's the when it works best. That's the formula. Because of course they could invent some kind of obscure space law that would solve their way out of the problem more neatly, but tying it to things that resonate with the people that are watching it, that's the secret.
Absolutely.
That's when it works.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's not just a case of like, you know, aspiring to, you know, a future that could be better. You also have to. I feel like good Star Trek also calls to the present and says you could be being better right now, and you know, acting better and acting in other people's best interests right now, if you choose to apply yourself. Like, you know, the fact that it's based on current law, it's like this isn't just a far off ideal. This isn't something that people don't deal with anymore. This is very much a real standing issue, and we're going to treat it with some real gravitas here. We're going to spend a lot of time examining the personal dynamics of it. We're going to, you know, throw a little bit of shade at Starfleet and the Federation, and even a little bit of April for saying, yeah, I wouldn't have said Una should join Starfleet if I had known, even though I know she's a great officer, even though I know all this. Like, yes, you have to say that because you're a Starfleet admiral, and if you say yes, I would have still said it. It's like, guess what? That's probably his career over. But it's still almost a mark against this character that is like, no, I would have, you know, completely denied her application, and all the people who would have died as a result.
I think it's more.
Well,
it's
something to keep
more
in
like
mind.
he is very much. You know, he's turned himself as like, no, I believe in the. You know, he's a trained, almost military officer. I believe in these codes that we have been given. This is the reason. And he even said it's not personal, but I would have denied it if I'd have known because that's my job. That's pretty much what he says.
But the point at which I think it's not always, I think maybe a mark against his character is an unfair way to say it, but it's a characteristic that we have to, because if that had been Pike on the stand, he would not have said that. I bet. But Pike would have been willing to burn his career to the ground.
He would have,
because that's the kind of Captain America asshole he is.
Well, he says that in the previous episode, right? He's like, I welcome that discussion.
Yeah.
So you know for a fact that if Pike was asked that exact same question, he would have said, no, I would have told her to send in the application anyway.
But his cockiness is off the
that's
charts
interesting.
because he knows he's not. He knows he's going to be a fleet captain someday, getting burned saving cadets. So, like, he's got
true.
He's got that path ahead of him. He knows. He can walk into any
Can you
room and he can
imagine
say,
if
"You are not going to fire me." Like.
But you're just turning Pike into Macbeth now? Pike's just like, no, Starfleet Admiral, a woman born can affect my career in any way.
No, that's the plot twist. That's the plot twist. Like he comes up on the stand. He's like, "Oh, you guys can't throw me out." He gets court-martialed, and then Admiral Pike from Quality of Mercy has to come in and bail him out again.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting point. It's like, why is Captain Pike not like jumping off every cliff he encounters because of, you know, Fate of the Future armor knows he's gonna make it through okay? You know, it's like,
I think that might
see how far he can push it. Why not?
This is like Doctor Who, almost like fixed points in time and like wibbly wobbly timeline fracturing kind of thing. That if you know your fixed point in time, that if you start to diverge from it, you create a separate timeline. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's like limits to. I don't know. That's theory, right? Anyway, getting off the point.
Let me address one of the side scenes. All the little side scenes are great, but the scene where Ortegas and Mbenga are watching Pasalk and Spock just like glare at each other.
Yes. Yeah.
One, this feeds into my theory that Ortegas is on the edge of being a bad person. But because Spock's alive in this timeline, you mentioned Quality of Mercy, so because Spock's alive, Ortega's has a chance not to turn into space racists from Balance of Terror.
Yeah. It is really interesting because when we saw that in Quality of Mercy, we were like, it makes sense when you understand the historical context of the Balance of Terror, but then you're like, but this is a really weird turn to take it. But it feels like here they're kind of leading into it. They're like, no, that was actually an establishing character moment, and we're going to examine that. And considering the fact that McCoy exists in his state for fucking 3 seasons of TOS and 6 movies, and he never gets called up on it, this is a thing that happens in this era of Starfleet. Guess what? You wouldn't get away with the shit in TNG.
That's
really.
because the only reason McCoy got into Starfleet is because said he was Spock's husband. So people just go like, "Oh, that's fine. Well, he can get away."
I have a Vulcan friend.
Yeah.
That's right. McCoy's the Don Rickles of Starfleet. He can get away with the racial joke.
But yeah, it's interesting because it's not the thing I would have naturally assumed because she's such a hot shot maverick with you don't really assume that kind of thing. But then, especially with the revelation that she was serving in the Klingon War, it's like maybe there's a place where this makes sense, and we're going to examine that. I'd be really interested to see where that dynamic goes if it gets elaborated on further here. I also have to shout out fucking Ethan Peck only really has 2 or 3 scenes in this of note. He has the bit with Pasok and he has the bit on the witness stand. He fucking nails both of them. Ethan Peck continues to deliver every single time he's on screen. The Gilbert and Sullivan crack, and the outburst. That just... When I first saw that, I just could not stop laughing because it's so fucking typically Vulcan.
I need to go and watch Q&A again because I haven't seen it since it first came out. But that was for anyone that doesn't know. There's a short trek with Spock and Una when Spock is an ensign coming on board that explains the Gilbert and Sullivan thing. So it's not kind of I like the nod to it.
They got trapped in an elevator.
Yeah.
And hi and nod to anybody that's laughing about me being on screen and Gilbert and Sullivan being mentioned again.
That's right. That's right.
I didn't even, do you know what?
Shame. Shame.
It's okay, Pig. We won't laugh at you for the next.
By the way,
40 years about it.
Pasok's completely a Romulan. Pasok's completely a Romulan. You
Mr.
heard it here first. That
Pointy
guy.
devil.
Yeah.
The most racist egg.
Yeah.
He...
Sorry.
Well, I appreciate that because they wrote themselves into the corner that this episode brought up, but by making Una an Illyrian. It's they know that they can't solve this problem in a far-reaching, meaningful way because of what comes later.
Yeah.
They had to have a very limited solution that was basically probably only going to fit Una, and I still think they managed to do it pretty elegantly.
They managed to thread that needle because it's very talking about real world examples. This happens a lot where it's all it takes is one court case, all it takes is one bus boycott, all it takes is one act where you point out how bullshit the law is, and you get people thinking, you get people going.
But we also know that it's not going to have wide-reaching consequences, and because we know.
For all we know, we could now rationalize and say so. The whole thing with Bashir kind of gets dealt with off screen. He doesn't get really brought up in front of a tribunal like this. It kind of just gets dealt off screen. It's more about the personal ramifications with his parents. I'm now going to have to headcanon that whoever his lawyer was, probably I don't know, what's another S name?
It was that guy that Una rejects at the opening, the public defender that crap public defender she got.
Stephen T. Cogley in the future has to cite Starfleet versus Chin Riley in that Bashir trial, and that's what gets him off. There you go. That's what ties it all together.
I have a big issue with now Starfleet's their whole legal system. Because it's all a joke. They haven't had this kind of precedent set before. And I mentioned this in the watch along. I said they had Starfleet versus Wick about some kind of I forget what the case was, but I'm
Idol?
Sorry, go on.
Well, what's it like to not have to follow the American legal system? Because this is
but
fantastically
even the American legal system has
blissful ignorance of.
Well, true, but. It does seem like there's a lot, and like you say, this Illyrian case is brought up now, and they said yes, we must have to look into this wide-reaching implication, and they don't. No one does. But my point is, this isn't the American legal system. This is supposed to be Starfleet. This is the utopia of the Federation that is supposed to enhance all these rights and, can't even think of the word now. The rights and lives of people in a way that benefits everyone. But there seems to be a lot of inconsistencies brought in at this point.
Idle.
Well, this is
are we really going to say that Starfleet is are we going to buy into Gene Roddenberry's bullshit? Are we going to act like Bruce Maddox and Nora Stacey and all of these people?
I am still.
So here's the thing.
Hang on, no, wait, stop.
Okay,
No,
you go first.
I am still of that mind frame that, fine, I'm happy with television being dark and there being some corrupt elements of Starfleet, but I still have that nice perception that Starfleet and the United Federation planets are governed by, being good, by doing the right thing, by being the best who they are, and being the utopia and the ideals that we can look forward to being. Them coming around and then saying we've got this whole legal system, but it's a bit shit because
Okay.
Yeah, but the legal system.
Let me ask you a
The
question.
legal. Go on. Go ahead.
You go, Shai. You go, Shai. I've got.
I was just gonna say this legal system is built literally coming out of the eugenics wars.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is that.
You know,
There's
after everything was
But
destroyed.
it's been a couple of hundred years now. That's pretty much how old's America? America's about a couple of hundred years now, isn't it? 200-300 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
200-300 years. You don't remember when you guys lost?
I wasn't there.
Weren't you?
A little bit before
here's
my
the thing.
time.
So let me ask you a question, Idle.
Go on.
Do you not think it makes a stronger point that Starfleet and the Federation are an absolute utopia where most people live in complete comfort and are free to live the lives that they choose and pursue any avenue that they wish, but they have that one blind spot? Just like perfectly good, moral, upstanding people in real life can have that one blind spot, that one prejudice that they have never examined, that one thing where they just have a knee-jerk reaction. And this is the thing, I'm not even having to go at you here. I'm having to go at myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your blind spot? What's your blind spot?
When I was growing up, guess what? I had a certain blind spot, and I had to consciously examine it and go, why do I think like this? Why am I so dead set on this? Why do I have such an intrinsic reaction, even though I consider myself to be a good, moral, upstanding individual? And it's like, guess what? A lot of the time, if you believe yourself to be a good, upstanding, moral individual, you don't consciously re-examine your biases because you believe you already have. You believe you're past the point of needing to, and then you kind of get into complacency. But the entire point of being a utopia is that you constantly reassess what you need to do for the best of everyone. And that's the point at which you go, okay, what's the most logical blind spot? Let's draw on history. Let's go for eugenics. Let's talk about that whole thing. And when you have it
confront you directly. You have it brought to your attention in a big way that you didn't really consider before. And that it wasn't a person before, it wasn't a people before, it wasn't a story, abstract words on a page. So until you're forced to confront it yourself, you may not have sufficient motivation to revisit these things.
Exactly. And I think that makes it even more of a strong point, because it's like, yes, Starfleet is a utopia, but the point at which you make it perfect is the point at which you also hit that TNG Season 1 problem of, we don't have headaches anymore, and you're not allowed to have personal drama. Yeah. It's like, you also have to make some concessions to the personal format where, Star Trek is about examining social issues. If the Federation doesn't have any social issues, then it's constantly talking about through alien lenses, and sometimes that gets a bit, you want to make it about real world issues, and you want a load of humans sitting around a table talking about civil rights, because you don't want to go through the allegories and the layers of metaphor and the makeup. You want people, of various different skin colors talking about civil rights and exclusion and being very unsubtle about what it means and what it applies to. Because sometimes you got to drop the anvil.
Yeah. Sorry, and you want it to be messy. You want it to be visceral. You don't want it to be abstract.
Yeah.
You want it to be about things that hit you. Yeah.
This brings me on to another point of the conversation was when Una was giving her testimony about what it was like growing up as an Illyrian on another colony. There was very much, like we say, this is one of the most unsubtle courtroom scenes. Like Measure of the Man was kind of an allegory towards, almost like,
Slavery.
Yeah, exactly. Well, almost, yeah, slavery primarily, and also
Expendable people.
Self-identification as well, yeah. And this was a very sort of less subtle version of that by sort of bringing up all like racial hates and people saying putting on like augment on the door and that. What did you kind of think of that version of Illyria being in a sort of a Starfleet world? Because to say like she was on a planet that was given provisional Federation status, yet there was still kind of like a rampant racism happening essentially.
Sure, yeah. They ended up segregating the city, right?
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
Divided
which is. For like,
well,
even if you say like, oh yeah, the Federation is flawed, when you've kind of got like an East-West Berlin thing going on, it's a bit like, what's
it's not even that; it's South Africa.
Yeah,
but it's
separate but equal.
Exactly. And here's the thing: I had to point out it was provisional Federation membership. There was no mention of a timeline of becoming a full Federation member. I also have to point out this has actually got precedent in Starfleet lore because fucking Tasha's planet was also a Federation world at one point and went through way worse social degradation and got abandoned. So it's entirely possible that Una's planet, which we're not quite sure if it's Illyria or not, we're not sure if it's a colony or whatever.
Well, it wasn't Illyria, no. It was a different colony. She said she brought up on a colony world. So, yeah, Illyria is very much out with the Federation, I believe, and subject to all sorts of different things.
That's why I'm completely fine with it, because it's a colony world with provisional Federation membership. Federation membership takes a while to clear, and I'm pretty sure we had a good few episodes in TNG kind of going over the process for like the Barzans and stuff like that, and it's like, it takes a while. You have to get cleared for that shit, and it's like you have to go through all these processes, and you have to sort out these issues. So I have no real problem with that.
Put the wig on Picard, and there you are.
Precisely. I also have to give a shout out to this episode having a one scene that comments on the ice raids that is better than the entirety of season 2 of Picard. Just saying.
Yes, show don't tell. Oh no, tell don't show.
Yeah,
in this case.
when she's talking about her best friend's cousin being arrested.
Yeah, that was a weird.
What an odd linkage. My best friend's cousin.
My best friend's cousin's mother's brother.
Yeah, see, it's like it's hard not to you want to avoid that kind of writing just because it's going to go into Spaceballs territory. It's
just see my best friend. My best friend would have done.
Yeah.
Or my.
Well, no, because she is like Nira is her best friend.
But okay,
they both
unless it was Nero's cousin. Was it Nero's cousin that we're saying arrested
Nira's
and
Cthulhu.
taken away?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because it's Nira Cthulhu and the
Ivan
Cthulhu.
Cthulhu. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's the link.
Yeah.
It's not best friend's cousin. It's Nira's cousin was the one.
Yeah,
who
they didn't
got
really
that.
sell that in that moment. Like we needed a reaction shot.
I feel like Nira's actress kind of showed that there was that moment of just like fury and like confusion and just like a bit of vulnerability of like you understand why she's so frosty to Una because you were allowed to get through when my cousin couldn't.
Well, okay, then I'll put my hand up in that completely glossed over me and I missed that entirely.
Same.
Yeah.
Because it was too subtle.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't put a lot of emphasis on Cthulhu. Maybe they could have had.
I also hear Ivan. I instantly envision like some Russian kid. Like so. It really like completely separates.
So when I say Patrick, do you imagine a redhead sipping Guinness? Like what?
Or
imagine
you could
Patrick
think
Stewart.
in it. I also was thinking in like Bond territory. It's like Ivana Tool or something. It's like it's. I mean, it's there.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that also got onto me, we're going to run longer today. This is one we have to talk about a fair bit. So,
what talking about?
The Vulcan admiral who was at the prosecution. What was his motivation? Because there was the conversation he had with Spock, and there was also sort of like what Battelle was hinting to, saying like, "Oh, this is going higher up," and then when he appears, she's like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting you." Like, is this a plot they're going to build up forward? Is this going to be because they said like, oh, they're taking a special
war?
They're taking
He's a foreign agent trying to destabilize the Federation. Spock says it. This would harm the Federation because you'd be like taking away an excellent officer who strengthens the Federation. He says
his motivation. That's my thing.
I think it's also it's trying to represent the different kind of personalities that would still exist, and there I think is always going to be that kind of person that is always looking for the last period of the last sentence of every technicality of law and trying to
Nora Sadie,
just
Yeah, I
gotcha
love that.
people on technicalities.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of person exists pretty often in other Trek entities and needed to be here too. Now, I mean, there may be additional ulterior motives that may come to light later, but I would be fine if this was his only appearance and that was the reason for it.
So I have a few thoughts on this. So I think it's very interesting that Spock mentions that he is one of his father's former colleagues.
Yeah.
Which is okay, so he's hung out with Sarek, and then they had a falling out, maybe over Amanda, maybe over his raising dangerous half-breeds, which we have seen opposition to before multiple times in Discovery, not just in Burnham's exclusion from the Vulcan Science Academy, but also in the attempt on the Academy with the bombing, and the attempt to kill Sarek by a logic extremist. And we also know there are logic extremist admirals who exist in Starfleet as of a few years ago, because Admiral Patar, who was head of Section 31, was also identified as being a logic extremist
Did she
when
really?
she was
Did
still
really?
alive. Yes,
did
she
not know
was.
that.
So these elements all absolutely still exist. This is drawing on a lot of Discovery stuff here. So people who and I think it's a case of this man probably he's probably meant to represent the conservative hardline. He could also be just a case of Vulcans are a weird people who can be very racist when they want to be.
I mean, we have seen
which
that in
09
Enterprise,
kind of
haven't we?
brought into
Yeah,
Enterprise and 09 also kind of
Yeah.
drilled down on that. So I'd be interested to see if this comes back in some kind of Romulan plot. It could also potentially come back in relation to Cyborg. I could see that maybe in
wow.
a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think definitely the Cybok connection is there because of his father's former colleague. So there may be some schism because of Cybok, the Cybok controversy.
Maybe his current
Yeah,
wife was the
'cause there's-
Vulcan priestess that was Cybok's mother. Okay, I don't know.
We could get real messy here.
Do we know the circumstances by which Cybok ended up where he is now?
No, that's not been
we have
explained
no
yet. Because
idea.
Big, just for context, hasn't watched episode 1. You've come to watch episode 2 with us straight away. So,
Yeah.
no, there was no Cybok in episode 1.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I knew that, but I mean, just where it was in series
no.
1, season 1.
What,
Yeah, that's
what we
pretty
know is
cool.
season 1. Yeah, they're very on the
Like
low.
Cybok was essentially like the cliffhanger of
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of
because
He was the
season
only
2,
unresolved thing
Angel
apart
was
from
and
part of
they
the group,
they
wasn't
just
she?
kind of have not gone back
is,
to it.
Oh, they
he's
will.
literally
They
the
will.
Avengers 1 Thanos of season 1. He really
complete
is.
with the turning the head. Yeah,
Then
yeah.
at the end
totally.
of season 2, he's going to pick up the gauntlet and fine, I'll do it myself. And he's going to pick up a phaser.
Yes.
So.
He's
They're
gonna
still
pick
trying
up
to figure out-
the gauntlet of Vulcan logic.
The toxic thoughts.
They're still trying to figure out who's going to play him. They haven't even cast him yet.
No, what is the what's the one in in Gambit with the Vulcan psionic?
Yeah, it's the Toxic Thought.
That was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Toxic Thought,
the
yeah.
psionic resonator.
Yeah, that's the one.
No,
Yeah.
it's not the Toxic Tot.
No,
That's a
Toxic
different
Thought's
one.
from Captain's Holiday,
Is
isn't
that Captain's Holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other obscure Vulcan relic.
Anyway. Let's do some. Should we just big up someone now? Should we talk about Rebecca Romaine in this episode because this is definitely
Guess
her best
what?
episode.
She was underused in season 1. She absolutely was underused, and I'm glad
I don't
you
even think
actually-
that's up for debate. Yeah.
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 She had one episode
I think she's
pretty
probably the
much
one who had the
in
least
season.
amount of development. And here she just kind of knocked it out of the park. Like she absolutely meets Yetide. Sorry, I forget her last name.
Yeah, it's
Batani.
Yetide Badaki.
Badaki.
Sorry, that's it. Yeah. And they absolutely meet. Like they are like two electric personalities bouncing off each other. It's not Yetide and the counselors or Pasark or Batel. It's absolutely between Rebecca Romaine and her. They are the ones who are bouncing off each other the most. Maybe April, you can go because April was also fucking great in this episode.
Really good.
And they absolutely. We've been bigging at Yetide, but like Romaine just does a really good. They keep on cutting to her a lot, and it's because she can say a lot with her face, where it's just like how much what April said hurt, how much what everyone on the Enterprise meant to her, and just how much he fucking hates Basalt and how Aspera wants to clothesline him. And I don't know if I'm reading a bit much into it, but I don't know. There was something a little bit overly long about how long she was holding onto Nira's hand.
Oh, you are not
I
the
don't
only
know
one
if
that has
that was
thought
me.
that. That was definitely
I
a.
thought that too.
Oh, we were maybe more
Happy
friends.
Pride Month.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, she's great.
Definitely. It's definitely was.
And I also really appreciate this was really subtle. So do you remember at the beginning of season 1, episode 1, when you have Una's log about first contact and meeting the stars, and how that all makes so much more sense when you know her backstory from this episode about through the stars, salvation, and hardship? Like, I feel like that suddenly codifies the character in a really interesting way, and I really appreciate stuff like that, where you go back and go, oh, that wasn't just a Burnham-esque kind of navel-gazing personal log, that actually had like relevance to her character arc, and I appreciate that.
One of my criticisms of this episode, which there aren't many, I'm going to rate this episode highly, but I have a few. There is a little bit of the whole, starry-eyedness at Starfleet ideals that I'm not as keen on. One of my complaints on Discovery is that it does that a little too, well, probably quite way too much, but there was a little bit of that in here, and there's a little bit too much of she's an excellent Starfleet officer, and there's a little bit like, we need to see a little bit more of that in Una's, because we've never really seen Una in command much other than one episode. I'm not in the capacity.
She was also in Commander in the Pirate episode, and she was the one who stopped them from fucking him over until Spock ruined everything. Because he got honeypotted.
Yeah. But we still need to see her epic, like a cool like ship battle moment where we can see like, oh wow, this is why she's the first officer.
I wouldn't mind that.
This is her Riker moment where we can tell like, oh wow, he isn't a decent captain. He's only staying there because he wants to be in Jean-Luc's shadow, But well,
she was also giving up blood for other crew members in the Gorn episode. She is consistently shown to be extremely competent at her job and heroic.
I just need to know. I need to see that. I need
more
to see
of a highlight,
an assertive commander. But that's just me. But I think like my complaint is like a little bit of like the starry-eyed. Starfleet is great. Starfleet is this, except Starfleet's slightly racist and doesn't sort out their legal problems.
Well, they address that. I appreciate that not just Una brings that back with saying Starfleet may not be perfect, but it's something I aspire to. But I also appreciate that even though Nero, who comes out and says, Starfleet fucking sucks, I fucking hate Starfleet, she's like, smart enough to codify her opening remarks by saying, perhaps unknowingly you've codified this racism in your lore. And then she has the come around which says, guess what? I may not be the biggest fan of Starfleet, but you guys are all cool, so it's a start.
Well, that's what the point of all of these Star Trek courtroom episodes is that being our best selves requires constant vigilance and constant reassessment of what we are, what we want to be, what we think we are, and what we actually are, and reconciling all those things. Yeah. And there's basically no better narrative way to do that than courtroom episodes. So that's what
I think
that's what they've always meant to me. And
personally, like the one thing that's challenged myself on that is having children and like dealing with my kids on a more of kind of like realizing that maybe I should have said that, or maybe I should have done that, and you become a lot more self-analytical as if you're like, am I being a good father right now? And then you'll do something. I'll chat with them for something, and my wife will be like, you kind of overreacted there a bit. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, maybe I did. And that's kind of the same kind of sort of theory that I align against, and it makes you think about other things. Are kind of like, oh wait, was I wrong in this scenario? Was I wrong in that scenario? Kind of thing. And that's like you say, it's all about the self-reflection.
It's great that you're talking to your kids. I think that's what shows real progress.
Well, I'm not Worf.
Come on. I keep coming to this you and your kids bit every time on this podcast. I just like the idea that you never see them.
You guys
the most absent father. He just sits down in his basement all day playing board games.
You're talking about basement. I'm on the Enterprise now.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about the courtroom because obviously it's courtroom. I want to give a big shout out, and Big, you won't have the context for this, but Season 2 appears to have picked up the flag and said, hey, Uhura and Lana are cool.
Yeah. Let's
let them just bounce off each other a little bit, because their moment in here was great. Their moment in episode 1, which you'll get more context for it, is great. Considering that was one of the few things I really enjoyed about episode 6 in season 1, the child murder episode. I'm glad that got brought back and is actually being brought forward and is being developed, because it feels like they have a nice. It's a nice way for Uhura to learn all that kind of self-confidence and assertiveness that she displays in TOS. It's like you can tell she took a few pages out of Lan's book in terms of I'm not going to let anyone dictate to me what I can and can't do, but I'm also not going to let anyone else compromise my moral character. And even though Uhura basically only had the one scene, it's like cool, fucking Celia Rose Gooding continues to kill it every time.
Absolutely, she's got that now. Uhura's now an ensign. She's now a command officer. She's getting a little bit of authority behind her. Like the first episode, she was talking down to the communications officers, like, no, this is my console, bugger off. And now she's just like, nah, lad, you can't come in here telling me about personal logs. I've got authority over communications. You're. But she said it a bit more diplomatically than that. But yeah, she's throwing her weight around a bit more, and I like that. That's good.
Well, and also just representing that getting what you want but not getting it the right way is
Matters.
not the right way to. Yeah.
And you could tell Lan was like Christina Chong did some like I think it was you or Stars said you big Star said like this Christina Chong's acting here is like one of her best scenes where she's being vulnerable, like she's worried for her friend, and she's worried that she's in trouble, and then she's got all that baggage with her Khan ancestry, which oddly enough the judges never really kind of addressed, do they? Like, hang on, wait a minute.
I mean, they did.
Wait a minute,
They brought it up.
Yeah,
but it's like at that point, it's like, what are you going to tell me? I'm not allowed to be related to people? Fuck off.
True.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's nice that they're giving her more depth and dimension this season, because I felt the first season that she was pretty much stuck in either brooding or PTSD mode for the entire, even with the Enterprise bingo scene, like even the, I didn't feel like they gave her, other than the Elysian field, like Elysian Kingdom,
and this one, that doesn't count. Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
Well, I mean, to your point, even in the Enterprise bingo, they automatically made her the bad cop. It was just there was no thought about it, because yes, obviously she's not going to be having any fun with this.
I don't know. I think from my perspective, I like how Christina Chong's been playing her, and I feel like it's a case of you have to establish that she's the hardest so that there's an actual impact to when she starts to thaw. Like, yeah, she was probably a bit more PTSD and a bit more broody, but it's a case of like you have to establish that and then commit to the bit. Otherwise, it's like you don't want to run into the situation of, oh, I'm this and the script says I'm this, and then you immediately start to undermine it. So it's like, oh, what's the fucking point of you being that character? You can't just, you have to earn the development. And that's why I feel like the episode, the moment with Nira here, where she just you get to see her like more vulnerable than almost ever, because this is about someone that she cares about. This is something that she feels she actually fucked up on, which I don't think
she feels
Lan
guilty.
feels like
Never
she's
seen
fucked
Lan
up often.
be guilty, have we?
Well, you haven't seen the
exactly.
first episode of this second season yet, Big, and there's a lot of Laan development in the first episode as well.
Well, I mean, she has to get back on the ship for one.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot with that. It's fun, yeah. But go on.
She burps really well.
She does. Okay. Now,
I got that to look forward to, I guess.
Guess what? She burped strongly. We have to talk about the actual star of the episode, which is the dress uniform.
If we really
I thought you meant
another fashion
Pasalk's
track at some
eyebrows.
point.
Let me quickly shout out Pasalk's actor. His eyebrow twirling villainy. Clearly Romulan, but he's so
Twirling your
good.
eyebrow?
Yeah. But let's get on to these fire uniforms.
They are such a lovely update of the TOS uniforms, and I like the TOS uniforms. Like, for a show that was like on a relatively a small budget where you had to spend your money carefully, I always thought the TOS uniforms were like some of the nice, because they're just so simple.
They had a lot of gold foil
the dress uniforms.
They had a lot of gold
a lot of
foil
gold foil
out.
and little jelly babies you stick onto your fucking
Do you know
chest.
what's really easy to cut out? Is triangles. You just have to do that.
Well, they're like shrinky dinks, right? Like you start out a lot bigger so you can keep the detail, and then you just shrink it down, and then it's the right size.
Absolutely, just iron it on. But it's so nice to see them return with a proper budget, and I know that oh god, what's her name? Bernadette Croft, is she the costumer on this?
Yeah, I believe so.
Her name? Because I every time she knocked it out of the park. I know Shy, you have very strong feelings about the Monster Maroon in episode 10. But
Quality Mercy. And, no one's perfect. Everyone has to have a Persian flaw. Those are her Persian flaw.
That's her one flaw. She's allowed one. But every other time she has knocked it completely out of the park. Not just with these dress uniforms, because they look good on fucking everyone. I really want to see everyone wearing them at some point. We need like a proper diplomatic function on the Enterprise, just so I can see everyone wearing them. I wonder what does like does Pike get like a special captain's jacket or whatever? Because he's already got
Pike
the green
would wander
jacket.
in with the green like wrapper around.
Yeah,
That
I
is
guess
his dress
so,
uniform.
yeah.
Like that's the captain's traditional, isn't it?
Yeah, but I want to see him getting like his captain's vest, like Picard has in First Contact. I always love that vest. But I also had to shout out every one of Nira's dresses and like outfits in this episode were incredible. They all had that 60s retro futurism going on that Strange New Worlds has kind of nailed. And every time I was just like, that is so TOS, but also so fucking fire.
Shai, talk to us about her positioning for the camera.
Oh yeah, Itiri Badaki somehow always managed to be like in 3/4 shots. She knew exactly where the camera was. Like, no, I'm not gonna look directly at I'm gonna be like side eyeing you with my
with the good
Eartha
side.
Kitt vocal fry.
Yeah.
And like just check out my cheekbone. Yeah, every single shot. It was amazing. It was truly amazing.
I also want to talk for because there has been a bit of complaint, and I understand it, that there's not been enough Pike this season.
There is a
and
reason.
that is for a few reasons. Yes. So Anson Mount and his wife, who I'm sure is very, very lovely and probably appreciates him even more than we do, because he gets to be Captain Pike at
And
home.
if she doesn't, she should.
Well, I'm sure she's lovely too. They've had a baby, and guess what? Part of the reason it took Strange New Worlds so long to get off the ground was because of his concerns about being there for his family over long filming schedules. So they made an agreement that, hey, we're going to make sure you get a good amount of quality time with your wife and your kid. So episode 1 and 2 have both been very light on Pike.
I think 3
That
will
being
be
said,
as well.
maybe, yeah. And I feel like that is a bit of a loss because guess what? Anson Mount is perfect every time. That being said, I also feel like this supporting cast is more than strong enough to hold them up on its own. The guest stars are perfect, and
he was in a lot of this episode, to be fair. You know, he had the scene on Illyria.
Small
He had
ways,
the scene with Batel in his quarters when he angrily chopped the carrot at her. And I love the moment where she opens the door and goes, "Your client's trying to ruin my case." And he's just like, "Good." He walks off.
I mean, the writers even put it in there. Like, Patel's like, this isn't your episode. You don't get to make an inspiring speech.
He did, didn't he?
She literally says it to him like, no, this is not your time.
No speeches from you. No, you're not getting no.
Paint a circle around it.
Let other people talk.
Absolutely. And it's like I understand the criticism. Of, I like Pike. It's like you had plenty of Pike in season 1. Season 1 is arguably Pike's story because it's all about his arc about dealing with his time travel trauma. And it's like, guess what? Let other people fucking have their episodes. Let Spock and Lon and Una and Uhura have their moments. We will get plenty of Pike, I'm sure. And guess what? They used him correctly. He had his Captain America moment of you sit yourself in the lobby suffocating, and you said no, you move. You know, you have that whole moment.
Yeah, he's like, I can do this all day.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do this all day.
If you hadn't told me the real world reasons why there's less Anson Mount in this episode, or the first episode that I haven't seen, I wouldn't have noticed. Because
I think it's done very normally,
that's a logical thing to do when you had made this character so centrally the focus of an entire first season of a series. Okay, now it's time to bring the rest of the cast in and give them more opportunities. Yeah. And then also give you a chance to miss him in ways so that he'll have more impact when he comes back. So
absolutely.
I think maybe they made some killer lemonade out of whatever lemons they were given by the constraints of Anson Mount's schedule.
Absolutely. And I want to give a shout. I forget his name, but the actor for April, he and Pike have such good chemistry. You can really buy those two. Adrian Holmes, that's his name. Yes, I absolutely buy that those two are captain and first officer on the level of Picard and Riker or Cisco and Kira.
Gosh, he is such a Robert April is he's a drama queen. When Pike's handing him the glass of bourbon, he's like, no,
and he snubs him. Oh.
And
because April thinks they're going the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I agree that, but he's still not. Pike was his first officer so many years, and he's being really pissy. And what is with the recurring theme of Pike making people food or drinks and them just walking away? I hate it.
That's because you wish Anson Mount would cook for you.
Can we talk about Captain Pike's arrow garden that he has in his quarters now? Did they have that first season?
No, they
did. They have his hydroponic vegetable garden?
I'm jealous.
That's amazing.
I wish I had that.
He leveled up his kitchen.
Like
He leveled
I
up.
have at work, we have like two sets of drawers of like various game controllers. He has that for his fucking fruit
his
and veg.
remain,
You
yeah.
fucking asshole.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Like
do
I
you think-
can't believe that like the hydroponics down on fucking deck 13 has a special section cordoned off for Captain Pike's cooking vegetables.
Well, see, then he can make choices, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, these people, they get the replicated herbs, and then they get the real stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you get the good stuff.
Meanwhile, Kess
Yeah.
on the voyage just is like, what if we try growing our own vegetables? And they're like, what?
No.
Sometimes the old way's the best.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think
dear.
it's time we went on to best and worst moments. Let's start with Big. You haven't been with us for a while. Please, best and worst moments.
Oh, good grief. Pass. Let me think for a second.
Okay,
I'm
shut up.
sorry.
I mean, obviously, Nero pulling out Starfleet Regulation 8514 is magic. Like, I've been setting you up. It's the usual suspects Kaiser Soze like flashback sequence of like, here's all the things I set up. You're
that was
going
quite
down.
clever.
So that's an obvious one. Best moment. My personal like little side favorite best moment aside from her fabulous performance is just the mustache twirling from the Sulk. Like the way he leans in and he's like sort of Agent Smithing every word. He's stretching everything out. Do you hear me now? Talking to you.
Lieutenant Commander Unachin Riley.
That's right.
Mr.
Choice, Mr. Riley. Yeah, he's great. I don't know if there's a worse moment in this episode. It's kind of almost a perfect episode of Star Trek. I don't know where I would
We're
go.
going to do the rare abstain. Ooh.
Is there a bad moment in this episode?
Okay.
Okay, go on, Big. We'll say start. We'll say
think about
Shah abstains, but come on.
So I think what might be my worst moment, and it's not that it is bad in and of itself, because I understand the purpose of it, but when April is done being on the stand, everybody in the courtroom, the people watching, are all talking about, what is she doing? Why is she putting April on trial? And there is not even an inkling of a thought that she is playing on a higher playing field than everybody else.
Because she gets it thrown out.
And-
she deliberately gets it thrown
Yeah.
out because she knows what it's going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just I wish there had been some kind of, dissonance from somebody thinking that there may be something more going on than what it appears on the surface. Like I said, it's not a bad moment on its own, but it's the only thing that kind of rang a little hollow for me watching it.
It's a
Best
misdirect
moment.
for the audience. Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
But it's like I
It
feel
would have
like
been nice if Baby Spock had been like,
This is what he's doing. Spelling
I
out
feel
for
like the
one
best
moment you want-
misdirects.
Yeah.
The
one
best
time you want the
misdirects will have a
audience-
hint at what the true answer is
Yeah.
hidden in there, maybe for you to see on a second viewing or something like that. And there was just nothing there.
Well, they're trying to paint her as an activist lawyer. Like even the scene after that, Una Chin's yelling at her, like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be here for me, not to like advance the augment agenda."
Well, even if
But
there
yeah,
was like an M. Night Shyamalan red doorknob, then just something to hint at it. Then maybe it is there. Maybe I got to watch it 3 more times and look for it.
She was dead the whole time.
Yeah. And then best moments. I mean, I think, again, Ethan Peck, just when he comes over and says like, "I'm sorry you had to see that," it's just like that sells it, because it's like, just obviously I've totally lost my cool, and it's just, but it's with that same kind of Vulcan subtlety. So I'll vote for that.
Stars.
Okay, I have my worst one locked and loaded, and it's a very small one, and it's kind of a sci-fi problem. I have almost without fail, anytime you try and come up with a sci-fi slang or a slur or a fake swear word. You know, it's like Marvel's 2099 has shock. In Battlestar Galactica they have frack.
I like frack. Frack kind of works. Smeg
Frack's
from
fine.
Red Dwarf works as well.
Smeg, Star Wars has dank ferric. Almost unilaterally, they're kind of awful. And Moddy is up there as just awkward.
It's bad.
Like, I know you couldn't go. Yeah, it's hard to come up with a slur, especially if you're presumably a nice person. But it just kind of rang as a little bit awkward.
Things really got heated when it was the Moddies versus the Rockies back in Brighton, 1960.
That's kind of the whole
thing. Yeah.
I have. Oh, do your favorite moment because I have a worse moment now. But go on.
Okay. My favorite moment of the entire episode. God, it's fucking hard. I think it might have to be Nira and Lan in Una's quarters, and she's explaining to her that she doesn't have to hate herself.
Yeah,
that she is not a monster just because people have told her that people like her are. Like, as someone who loves X-Men, as someone who genuinely really loves like the ethos and grew up reading that and believes in like, you know, a lot of those stories, like that really resonated to me in a way that a lot of like, you know, the movies and like, whatever have never really done, because it's just so direct and sincere. And it was exactly what that character needed to hear, delivered from exactly the kind of person who you wouldn't expect, but makes perfect sense to tell them. Like, that dynamic is perfect.
I think it was you that said like the whole Illyrian planet is basically X-Men the planet.
A little bit, yeah. And guess what? X-Men, like Star Trek, is at its best when it's examining these things smartly, which it often doesn't do. So I'm going to call out that because both of them just fucking killed it in that moment, and just like the vulnerability they both shared and that moment of commonality. That's what Star Trek is about for me. Like straight up.
Shai, what's your worst moment then?
Oh, so when Nero's doing her cross-examination of April, the court's like, this Admiral April's not on trial here. Please stop like badgering the witness.
Yeah.
And then when the Vulcan admiral starts like questioning about Pike, they're fine with it. Oh yeah, you can go ahead if you want.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
He causes problems for us on the daily.
Pike's not on trial now. Oh, but it's okay when Romulan Pastalk is going after him. That's fine.
Yeah. That's more fuel for your theory that these undermining Starfleet are Pike.
That's fine.
All right. I think I
did mine.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
I think.
Don't make me do it again.
Do it again. Do more. I need another worse.
I think I'm a little bit down on the whole like legal system in like a little bit expansion on Shai's one, but I'm a little bit down on the whole legal system of or the legal play in this episode was very much TV legal as opposed to, you know, it's a reflection of court martial at the end of the day, and we want entertainment over accuracy, but there were a few moments where it was a bit like, this is very like soft play, and the allegory that they were trying to shoot for, although a very good cause, like this is very on the nose, something that affects us every day, and I will support it wholeheartedly. It was very obvious. It was very obviously like looking at the camera and winking, just saying like, you know, this is how we can improve ourselves.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and I am fine with it.
I don't know, man.
I think it can be a little
having
subtler.
seen all the Star Trek fan groups that completely are fine with racism, like I don't know. I think these people need to be told.
You are probably right, but yeah, I little bit more maybe reading between the lines for me. Best moment,
Anvil.
Okay, I love. Just Pike dealing with Nira when he was first introduced to her, and just like running out of oxygen, and then just handing her all sorts of snark, and her little floating chair. I only noticed that on the when we rewatched it, like her chair floats for no reason. But
it does.
It
I
did.
didn't see that.
Well, I couldn't see a stand. I couldn't see a
cool.
stand, but that was pretty cool. So little details, but yeah, those are my.
Guess
favorite
what?
moments.
That thing's got lumbar support like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, Jesus, that's why her posture in the court was so good. Extra sass support. That's what it is.
Damn right.
Okay, let's go. Stars, what is our rating for this episode?
You'll like this one. This one's a bit more formidable than last week's. So, gentlemen, how many Pike's Incredible Botanical Menageries out of 10 would you give this episode?
Love it. Let's go same order. Big.
I will. Oh man. I don't want to fire off a 10 right out the gate.
I'm kind of in that area as well.
I'm gonna give myself the wiggle room of giving this a 9.
Okay.
Just because
A
I
safe
want to
9.
give the rest of the season a chance to surpass this.
I mean, I always say with these ratings, feel what you feel for the episode. Don't think about the rest of the season. Don't think about the season before. Think about yourself.
But we are also
right
going to
now.
revisit these at the end of the series
Yeah.
and be like, are we going to have to revise these up, revise these down?
Yeah,
So we'll see how we feel about it in the thing. Maybe
I would say if
you
you feel it's a 10 now, give it a 10. Like you are here right now reviewing this episode. If that's how you feel, do it. Don't let future or past influence you.
And thinking about it, just the thing that I brought up about the writing clearly leading you in a direction, I think that's enough for me to keep it from giving it a full 10. I'm gonna stick on 9.
Okay, cool.
That's more than fair.
Final
Shy.
answer.
I will also give it a 9.
Okay.
This is pretty much a perfect episode of Star Trek. You know, it deserves a 10, but just being an old man, I find myself missing the
Advert breaks? So you go to the toilet?
No. Well, yeah, the advert breaks. But the Colonel Jaffe measure of man, like lawyer shouting at the witness on the stand, like,
Oh, a little bit more.
"Did you order the code red?" Like, do you? There he sits. Like, this is much more realistic and reasonable for her to like not antagonize court to get them to like side with her client.
So you want more
exactly what was
drama.
needed, but I needed a little like shouting at the salt, like, or something. But this is like
I'm
a
just
flawless
saying,
episode.
if he had been clotheslined, you would have been satisfied.
That's right.
Well,
So
and
I'm assuming botanical menagerie. So the menagerie episode actually refers to Pike's.
Absolutely, to his
Herb-
Yeah,
Herb
actually, I
garden.
didn't
well-known
think of that.
penchant for
Very
having a home
clever,
garden.
very
Yeah.
clever. I like it. That's better than some of the writing in this episode. But go on, Stars, what is your rating?
Shut up!
Yeah, no, for real.
Ridiculous
Sorry,
right now.
just teasing. I had to say it.
Snarky little bitch. I am
Look
going
at you
to
right
give.
now.
I'm going to give this episode 9.5
Ooh.
Pike's Incredible Botanical Menageries out of 10.
Sneaky 9.5 there.
Moddy and some of the little bit of like oversaturating sentimentality kind of knocks it a little bit. But if someone asked me, hey, what's a great episode that sums up what Star Trek is and what it's about and what it should be about, I would say, cool, here's Measure of a Man, here's, Best of Both Worlds, here's a fucking duet, here's Blink of an Eye, here's Carbon Creek, here's fucking Magic to make the Saiyans go mad, and I'd probably give them this episode as well. I'd be like, guess what? This is a really fucking good example of why you should care about Star Trek and why it's important.
I think for like.
I feel like
yeah,
this.
you go on.
Well, I was gonna say, I think that this episode very well could supplant like Measure of a Man as the quintessential.
It's a bit more in depth in ways.
Yeah.
I don't know whether
And
it's just like.
Might be
favoritism
nostalgia
for-
bias talking for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I wonder if it's a little bit more nostalgia that makes me think like, no, I want to put it above Measure of a Man. Maybe if I watched Measure of the Man next, that I might feel different. I don't know.
Well, it's because Data was a fan favorite come out of season 1, so the stakes were higher in Measure of a Man.
Yeah.
You know, we still like you were saying, Una Chin Riley's actually underdeveloped in season 1, so we're coming into this without the same level of stakes in terms of an audience being invested in the character.
That's also
as
true,
it were.
yeah.
Measure of a Man. But
Plus,
did you give us your?
the contrivance of Riker being the prosecuting attorney?
That was cool,
is
yeah.
Also a-
And also the fact that it takes 45 minutes for Picard to realize, oh yeah, slavery is a thing.
But then again, it took them the whole episode to realize, oh wait, asylum. She could just request asylum. But yeah,
I don't know. I think you get away with that way easier when there's like fucking
True.
12.9
I think the
volumes
clever-
of the Uniform Code of Justice.
The clever part of this
Well,
episode
you wait
was
to
that
throw
she,
it in at the end.
Yeah.
That way, the prosecution doesn't have a chance to attack it.
I think the clever thing was Nero already saying, well, she's already claimed asylum. she's already done it. That was the little twist that was
Yeah.
like, that was the nice little
Right.
kind of like, oh, she's already done it. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, 4 months ago, she tricked Pasalk into asking like that. By the way, when she brings up the Starfleet code, there's a shot of Pasalk in the background, and you can see his face like fall because he already knows like
Oh no.
It's
Wait,
waiting for right now.
like when he's talking, you can see there's another shot where where Nira's like in soft focus, like the shots actually focus on Una, but Nira's in the foreground and they have the shadow depth of field, but she's smiling as the guy's going through his closing statement because she's like, I got him, like she knows I have him.
Yeah.
By the way, this chair is floating in her office.
Yes.
Oh wow.
And also another little this is how good this show is. There's a great detail. There are plants in her office, and they're all in environmental tubes because they can't live in the
Oh, I didn't
environment
notice that.
Oh, that's so
Wow.
good.
of Illyria. Like,
Fuck, I love this show.
So good.
All right, rate
although
this
like they
episode,
wouldn't have
Idol.
GMO'd plants.
I'll go for 9.2.
Yeah, considering they have their plants and environmental tubes, I can't wait to hear your unfair ranking, Idol. How many incredible botanical
Listen,
menageries out of 10?
I'm not also that's just going to come out and say, this is 2, this is trash. No, this is a 9.2. This is very, very good genre-defining episode. That is...
Big looks so betrayed.
I know, sorry.
What are these decimal
Fractional
points?
decimals.
Yeah,
play
this is
fucking
not the
Jeopardy here,
uniform
Big.
code of justice.
No,
You give it a
Hey, give it a
9.375.
12.9.
my arguments are... my criticisms of the episode are petty in comparison, really. There are a few things that canon-wise maybe don't link up, but I think the message of this episode speaks over all of that. I want to show this to my children to say, like, these are the moral values we should follow. These are the kind of things that we should be thinking about when we're dealing with our friends. Like, me and my kids haven't talked about anything about race or anything like that because I'm not addressing it at the moment. He's got plenty of friends of different cultures and races, and I just say, hey, that's cool. Are they coming around for dinner? And I want to kind of like point out that they are people and not a problem, or anything like that. And I think the message here is bigger than anything else in this episode. And it's not just a race thing, it is a transgender thing. It is anyone that is different to the norm feels appreciated here. And this is me speaking this as a white British Westerner who has every privilege in the world. Is speaking from from a lucky position. I feel everyone needs this lesson. This is.
And you're having dinner with your kids now too. That's amazing.
Listen, our dinner is me basically finishing my dinner and telling them to finish their dinner because they're picking around the cabbage. But there we are. I'm not Worf. I am not Worf, and I don't just chuck my children away.
You killed me. I'm dead. I'm sorry.
He could be more British. He could have a French name but a British accent.
Exactly.
Cabbage.
I'm not having a tryst on Casperia Prime and ignoring them for 30 odd years.
Incredible.
Okay, thank you very much for watching this review. We will be back next week with tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow a alarm and
Get ready for some time travel.
Kirk-focused episode. Very intrigued to see how that comes about. We will see you soon. Live long, prosper. Ta-ra.